Good afternoon, and apologies for that short delay in our broadcast today. Remember that our broadcast starts at 6 p.m. on Sundays. We're just over due to some technical issues. So, once again, welcome to this broadcast. You are watching me live. That is Samuel Oludayi, and this is OY Media Scotland. Today on the program, we will still be hosting your regular guest, and that is Alagba Femi Odedeyi. And today we'll be looking at some of the narratives. The title that we have today is actually something that we need to look at before people start to skin us. And what we're really looking at today is the Yoruba nation now, and that is something that we put as Yoruba nation now. Are we killing the spirit of the people? And that is the reason for that is that while it's very, very important for propaganda to be used in major conflicts, including in war, people use propaganda, but the ones that are being used, especially when some information are not accurate, are they having very negative impact rather than something positive? Alagba Femi Odedeyi is right back here with me today, like I've said, and he will be speaking to us on some of this inaccurate information. Remember, we've mentioned over and over again that until we start to query some of the things that we are putting out, we may possibly leave things too late when we might not be able to correct them again. You are most welcome on the program, Alagba Femi Odedeyi.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here once again, and it's my pleasure also for our listeners and our participants to be here with us. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome, sir, and apologies for that short delay before the start of the program.
Okay.
Just like I was telling our people before you came on, that there are some narratives that are right on out there, especially when it comes to the issue of Yoruba liberation. I've also mentioned that in all conflicts, we always have a space for propaganda, including in war. I mean, just the sort of one we've seen happening in Russia, in Ukraine, and some of the NATO nations, where deliberate, inaccurate information are churned out in order to tilt the balance of the game. But with the Yoruba nation now, and I'm not referring specifically to a group, but just in general narrative of yes, we want a Yoruba nation now, whether that nation is outside of Nigeria or that nation is within Nigeria, or whether that nation is the restructured nation or that nation is the one that produced the next president. So I'm just taking everything together. And so the first word that I'll be firing at you, sir, is let's get into no election in Yoruba land. Over the weekend, we had elections in Ekiti, and that election has been largely peaceful. The only thing that was complained about is the use of money. I mean, the political party bribed the electorate, but other than that, the election went smoothly in terms of process. Uh, I mean, people were able to get to the polling booth. Nobody disturbed them. They casted their votes. Those votes have been counted, and the winner has been declared. So, which means he has been done and delivered. But we have one of the groups agitating for liberation for Yoruba land, telling people that there's not going to be any election. And we begin to look at these narratives. I'll pull back a little bit to when the force majeure was declared, and we had the deadline in which they said by social date we are no longer under the constitution. Some people have raised issue about this that, oh, the day passed, we are still under that constitution. We still carry the passport that the Nigerian government, through the instrument of law, approved. We still take our case if we have any issue. We still go to the court and the police, which are agencies under the constitution. So, if we now look at, because that means that one is gone now, he didn't achieve what they said he was going to achieve, but now we've now come to the second one that there won't be any election. In fact, we were told specifically there will not be any election in Ekiti and Osun states. That of Ekiti happened yesterday. So if the force majeure didn't achieve its aim, and some people were discouraged because they felt that those people that gave them those information did not give them accurate information. It can, what sort of impact could this Ekiti one that took place yesterday, and they're already preparing for the next one in Oshun. But with this one happening again, what do you think, sir, will be the feelings among the people that have been told the pathway to Yoruba liberation is for the Ekiti state election not to take place?
Uh, Thank you very much for the analysis and the question. Unfortunately, it is the Yoruba people. Well, I won't say Yoruba people in general. I will say the advocates of self determination or the rest are the ones that are going to be extremely disappointed in the sense that um, Yoruba people voted in Ekiti yesterday. I mean, we can't say they are not Yoruba people, they are Yoruba people. So the voters and the people they voted for or against are not going to be disappointed. But those who are championing uh, Yoruba self-determination or Yoruba nation now and all that uh, only shows that all their demands or their activism are not based on sound theoretical underpinnings. It's just all emotion. Yes, things are happening in Nigeria, things are happening in Yoruba land, things are happening to Yoruba people. Not only Yoruba people, but let's confine it to Yoruba land now. Things are happening all over the place. So the emotional outburst to resist or to reject what is happening is what has led to these types of agitation. And when the emotionalism came on board, they did not even sit back to think about how to approach the problem. So it's simply okay, Nigeria is oppressing us, blah blah blah, kidnapping and all that. Then the solution is we are having our nation now. So how do you have your nation? Like you said, initially they said they declare force majeure. They don't believe in Nigeria. Some of them even said they are no longer in Nigeria, even though they are still residing in Nigeria. They said they are no longer in Nigeria, and now they now said there will be no elections and all that and all that. Yet, the first question they should have asked themselves, or people should ask them, is how do you want to enforce this thing? Let's even say you have an army somewhere, a military, an armed group somewhere that is able to ensure that the elections will not take place. The only way they can do that is to attack central government security formations. That is one way of doing that. And when they do that, you attack central government security and military formations, you have already declared war in your own land. And therefore, whoever, whichever has the military advantage will now control the land and dictate what will happen. On the other hand, you can also mobilize people to boycott the elections if that is what you want to do. You can mobilize people to boycott the elections. But what are the political implications of such a boycott? If you are looking at Yoruba Nation now, the only people you can appeal to in Yoruba land are Yoruba people. So let's say Yoruba people boycotted the election. All Yoruba people in Ekiti State boycotted the election. There are still non-Yoruba people in Ekiti State that won't boycott. In fact, the moment you start asking Yoruba people to boycott, even if those other non-Yoruba people had been lying dormant, they will become active, and then they can put anybody they want in place. So both the military and the political options have severe limitations that can even damage the quest for the Yoruba nation they are talking about. So when all these things happen, then they think or they project the view that there is something exceptional about Yoruba land, that as if we are not part of the world, and therefore the experiences in other parts of the world do not matter in what we are doing. They see Yoruba land as an island, and then they go into all kinds of things. Yeah, we are praying spiritual, this and that it has been decreed and it has been done and all that. So at the end of the day, what happens is, because when you say you want Yoruba nation now, or you want anything now, or anything anywhere, that means the basic thing is there is something that exists, a reality that exists, and you want to take yourself out of that reality. The only way you can take yourself out of that reality is, one, you must recognize the existence of that reality. If you don't recognize it, you are not going anywhere. Because the first thing is, you want to live somewhere, you ask yourself, where are you living? What are you living? Where do you want to live from? So there's a reality, and the reality is, okay, there's Nigeria, there's a legitimate government by their democratic means. We had what the American ambassador said, told the vice president, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, that the Nigeria provides a democratic source. I don't know what it means, but what she said was that Nigeria provides a democratic source for gas supplies. So to them, their democracy is once you have the elections, periodic elections, you have whether they buy votes or not, as long as it is peaceful and people voted and all that, uh, it's all right. So you have the reality of Nigeria, you have the reality of its legitimacy, and you are not taking it into consideration when you say you want to leave. All you are doing is, and you don't want it. Okay, nobody says you should want it. You can leave the country now, as many have done. People have left the country, but when it becomes a political issue that affects millions of people, then it is the responsibility of those who are making that advocacy not only to educate the people they are supposedly representing, but to also educate themselves in what they are doing. Otherwise, it will be what we are now witnessing. It's as if they don't know what they are doing. It's like those who went to court to stop the Ekiti court. A constitution establishes a court. Now you went to the same court to nullify the constitution. I mean, it's like you are nullifying the court itself. And the court said, who told you to, even what standing do you have? So these are minimal issues that should have been considered. Unfortunately, all those people, including the lawyers among themselves, they did not consider those things. They just assumed that it's like building a castle in the air. If you say you are living a reality, but you don't know what that reality is, then you are just building a castle in the air. You aren't going anywhere. I mean, in a sense, you are not going anywhere. And it has shown by the results they are having. First, we don't know where their constitutional force majeure is. Maybe they have, when companies declare a force majeure, they will say maybe some act of God beyond human, something has prevented them from doing certain contractual obligations. When that situation is removed, they will perform their contractual obligations. So a force majeure is not a permanent thing. Like when you have an earthquake that prevents a ship from sailing or some tsunami, and so after that they can continue doing their business. So when you now declare a force majeure and nothing happened, and Nigeria is still existing, and then you are now changing tactics, from force majeure to no election to this and that, it shows that there's a lack of theoretical understanding of what they are saying. And we have been saying it. Yoruba nation exists as agreed and as defined as what a nation is culturally, sociologically, economically, and all that. That's a Yoruba nation. What we lack is a state that is to govern ourselves according to our own realities. That's what we are. So it is even a misnomer to start talking about Yoruba nation now as if we don't exist. We exist, or as just like other nations also exist. What we lack is a state. And because of that lack of comprehension on their part, they started slogans don't win any wars or even battles. Slogans can help. Like you said, propaganda can help, but it has limited use. There was the party, what's the name of this party in Nigeria? The PDP. One said that it's going to rule Nigeria for 60 years. I think so. That's propaganda, that's sloganeering, which they are entitled to. But the following year, they were removed from office. So, what happened to the 60 years? So, I mean, if your slogan does not reflect your reality or the reality you are looking from, when the bubble bursts, when it bursts, you just be looking at what happened, and that is what is happening to the to all those slogans and sloganeerings and all that. And we were asking them at that time when they said there will be no election. Okay, how do you want to prevent it? No response. Nobody responded. I had a telephone conversation with one of the leaders of that movement at that time. And he said, but we need slogans now. How can we advance this? I said, yeah, you need slogans, but you don't use your slogan as a strategy. Then he said, what do you have to do? He said, forget about your slogans now. Try to get people to understand what the stakes are. Then he said, I'm not interested in Yoruba nation, and cut off the discussion. So it's not that it's not that efforts were not made to address these issues when they were coming up. It's just that the leaders of the movement at whatever level were impervious or not interested in addressing the core issues they claim to advance. That's why they are having all this mess that is going on around. And unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, like I said, if taken side by Ekiti now, there are Yoruba people who voted in Ekiti and who are dancing in the streets now. Whether they are paid or not, they are dancing in the street that their candidates won. They are already congratulating each other in terms of whatever it is, the electoral results. They are Yoruba people. So who are the Yoruba people that are now saying they are no longer in Nigeria? So if they leave the reality of Nigeria, then the next logical step for them to do is to have their passport and leave the country and go anywhere they want to go. But if they are talking about liberating Yoruba people, from oppression
Mhm.
in Nigeria, then it's not a question of denying the existence of Nigeria. You can't deny it that it exists and say you want to live from it. It doesn't, the logic is not there. And if there is no logic, the Bible says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Lack of
So
knowledge. Yeah.
there must be a sequence, there must be a logic, there must be, that is followed. You just don't wake up and say, you are no longer this. If you do that, then it's your personal decision, which you are entitled to take, and then you can leave. But if you say you are representing a people,
Yes.
that have voted, that are continuing to vote, that are expecting their man to be president of Nigeria, whether for good or for bad.
Mhm.
Everybody wants their man to be president, and your man is there, and you are not saying you are no. So, unless there is a meeting point between the two sides that says, okay, where do you want to go? You just be floating around. That's why I said they are building their castles in the air.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just on the backdrop of that explanation to that question, is there not a possibility that people that should have taken part, and I'm talking about Yoruba people,
Yeah.
believing strongly that each agitation group, Yoruba agitation group, will
Yeah.
have their own members or their own followers? Is there not the possibility that maybe some of the people that should have voted yesterday, some will have taken it that, okay, our group has said no, that election is not going to take place, and the steps they were supposed to take to confirm their PVC and all these things that probably that narrative could have cut some people off from partaking in yesterday's electoral process?
Yeah, it's possible, but the danger there is this: uh, they didn't succeed. That's why the election succeeded. Now the thing is, once they keep on insisting that they don't recognize that reality, the only option for them, if by any chance they get to power, is another form of dictatorship. It's a road to dictatorship. Now, you can hold a position that, yes, we don't like this system, we want to get out of that system, we are no longer part of it, and agitate for it. But you can't say it doesn't exist. Look at the fringe groups in Britain and Europe,
Yeah.
the far right groups, Le Pen and Farage and all the rest of them. Yeah, they have their weird notions of what should happen, and they remain within that, and they try to push their case within that system, and they are moving. I mean, they are recognized, even though they may be on the fringe. I think they
Yeah.
even sometimes came close to taking power. Right. So, but they are not saying, well, because of whatever belief that they have, Britain doesn't. Farage never said Britain doesn't exist. Farage wanted to take over as Prime Minister of Britain so that he can push his agenda. Le Pen didn't say France does not exist. He said France, yes, but we have to take over France so that we can pursue our agenda. And the independence movements in Scotland and all the rest, yes, they say, yes, we want to be independent. And this is so that's why I said it is if they say they don't recognize that reality, the only option left for them is to be a dictatorship. Because, yes, you're okay, among the members of the different groups that don't believe in Nigeria or whatever it is, they didn't vote. Let's assume they didn't vote in the election. The six people, at least the six people that went to court, I hope they won't vote. They didn't vote in the Ekiti election. But some Yoruba people voted. Whether they were giving money or not is immaterial at this point. Some Yoruba people voted, and their vote counted. because they now have a legitimate government in place. So how do you now say because you have reached the conclusion that you are no longer in Nigeria, your will should prevail? The only way it can prevail is by being a dictatorship. That's why when they were campaigning and all that, they start, it's about insult and abuse and curses and all that, because that's the only way they can impose themselves on the people. So that is what it means. No one, I mean, if you don't believe in the election and you think that it is going to be rigged against you and you think it's not going to help Yoruba people, the way to do it is not by saying you are no longer you are doing this, you are doing that. You have to fight them one way or the other. That's why I said there are options. If you don't want to go military, you can mobilize people to boycott. And if enough of your people succeed in following you and you boycott it, of course, you have to face the consequences also. If
Yeah.
Yoruba people don't boycott, that's what you have to face. But these are options that are you can't simply say that because you think that you want your nation now, then everything that exists doesn't exist. It doesn't make any sense, and is unrealistic. I mean, unrealistic not in the sense that it can't be achieved, but in terms of negating reality. You are running away. In fact, they are running away from the problem. They are not resolving it. It's just like running away from it. And we don't believe it. We are no longer there. Some of them at that time will be saying we are no longer in Nigeria, and they are stalking from Nigeria.
Yeah.
So there's a confused understanding, if there is such a word. There's a confused understanding of what the problem is. And instead of their being humble, and that's why I said they think Yoruba land is an island. These things that we are talking about is happening all over the world. It's happening in Africa. There are ways people are approaching it, the good ways, the bad ways, the better ways, all kinds of things. But none of them is even in their consciousness. If you ask them, okay, this is what happened in Ethiopia, they won't be able to answer you. If you say, okay, but this happened even in Scotland that everyone knows, they won't be able to respond. They will just say, no, Odua will do this, Odua will do that, Odua will do all kinds of things, which is okay. I mean, but the point is, uh, from the material, response, that is how you measure the validity of a position. So you say no election and elections held. So what do you do now? They will say they bribe the voters. Why can't you bribe the voters? We don't have the money. Okay, if you don't have the money, why don't you mobilize yourself so that you have people that you don't need to bribe? All kinds of stuff like that. But to say it doesn't exist, it's just running away from reality. And that is their problem.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We're taking it one at a time. So we've gone for the first part, which is the right at the back is the force majeure.
Yeah.
So the latest one is the one that is Ekiti. Yesterday,
Yes.
the election conducted, and of course, preparations are on for the conduct of the Ondo election. Osun,
Yeah.
thank you for that, sir. That is for the Osun election, which will be coming up next month. In terms of political parties, we've also seen that not only is the presidency now shifted, by one party,
Yeah.
is shifted to southern Nigeria. It's not actually, we now have a candidate that is Yoruba
Yeah.
in the election, and that is in the person of Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu
Yes.
of APC. APC is one of the biggest parties in Nigeria. And we've been seeing his tours. He was at Ibadan a few days ago during the chieftaincy
Yeah.
ceremony for the governor of Kano State. And we see that massive crowd that, in fact, looking at that crowd, you can almost like think that, I mean, part of those people shouting Yoruba Nation now
Will
will
be
probably
there. From there.
have as well.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of Yoruba targeted action towards liberation, should we believe now that Yoruba hasn't got a sole focus to say that as Yoruba, um, what we all agree that will lead us to liberation is this. Can we agree that we don't have anything like that at the moment?
Not yet. Not yet. The fact that we have someone like Asiwaju Tinubu to be, and let's assume, we are assuming that he wins the election, general election, as president, is good and bad in the sense that, I mean, we have been through that road before. We
Mhm.
had Obasanjo as a president, a Yoruba president, although he doesn't consider himself Yoruba president. Maybe, they call him Ebora Owu, so he's an Owu president. Anyway, I'm just kidding. So we had Obasanjo as president, who is a Yoruba person or Yoruba man, and we know what he did. I mean, he used federal might to get the PDP that is supposed to rule for 60 years. Actually, it started under him. And then they just started taking over everybody and doing all kinds of things. You have a minority in the house impeaching a governor, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, he did it. And then he went, although not completely his fault, but he went and neutralized the Yoruba mouthpiece at that time, which was Afenifere and the AD governments, except the one in Lagos led by Bola Tinubu at that time. So he rubbished everything. So the fact that a Yoruba man is there, is the president, is neither here nor there. The difference between him and Tinubu would be if Tinubu becomes president. Tinubu was a product of the pro-democracy movement, the anti-military movement that brought about this democracy that they are running. Obasanjo was also indirectly a product because he was in jail, but he's a military man and he was plugged, and then all that. So one can say, so now the question now is, yes, because the battle was very clear during the party primaries. Everybody was, this slogan, Yoruba Lokan, which, and then he said, Yoruba Lokan. Everybody said it. It's just that Tinubu was the one that was bold enough to make it like that. Atiku was saying, I am Fulani, and his is even worse than what Tinubu said, in the sense that they didn't even want the presidency to come to the south. He insisted it must remain in Fulani hands. So he wasn't even hiding it. So everybody was in. So now, on that score, it is good that, yes, we have someone there. But that's just one aspect of the story. The other aspect is what we want is not what the APC as a party may want. Asiwaju Tinubu is a Yoruba man, he's also representing a party. He is a Yoruba candidate of the APC, but he's not a Yoruba candidate for Yoruba, Yoruba. So his party will come into play. They will do what they are doing in their political parties. So it is now left for Yoruba people to let Tinubu and the APC know, because the APC won the Ekiti governor election
Yes.
yesterday. So we have what they call Southwest APC and all the rest of it. So it is now left for Yoruba people to now say, okay, oh, yes, we thank you, and yes, we want you to be there, you'll be happy, everyone will be happy. But this is what we want. We have to get to that point to let him know that we are not against you, but you should not be against us. And the only way we can do that is for you to agree to what we want. We are not imposing anything. We are saying, and we have a right to do that. In fact, that is what the whole essence of right to self-determination is. That we say, okay, oh, this is what we want for ourselves. And I will give you a very good example. Now they are talking about Muslim ticket. Christians are saying it must be Christian and all this and all that. But everyone realizes that Yoruba religion doesn't create division within Yoruba families. Everyone says it. That, and in fact, a lot of scholars have done several studies on it. Why is it that Yoruba people don't fight over religion? No one is here to come with an answer. I have my own answer, but we won't go into that now. Yeah. So, but that Yoruba thing has no bearing on how the Nigerian state is constructed. So we that don't fight over religion are now operating under a state structure that fights over religion. So that is where you now have Muslim, Christian, Muslim, and all that and all the rest of it. Whereas if the Yoruba consciousness or Yoruba cultural consciousness is part of the state structure, then all these things will not happen. I mean, not that there will be no crisis, so there will be, but not in the way it is. And how can that be when Yoruba govern themselves according to their own norms, and then they can relate with it? So if everybody governs itself within its own cultural norms, what they perceive to be good for them will inform on the kind of state that emerges. And then if you now fight over religion in your own area, that will be your own business. We don't fight about it in our own area. That is our own business. So that is why we are saying, we are told, when they talk about restructuring, self-determination and all that, that is what we are saying, that the nature of the Nigerian state must change into what we call a multinational state. We are all nationalities, and we must be able to express ourselves within that structure of the state. So if Tinubu now becomes president, and we say, yes, no problem, this is what we want. Now it is his choice to say, well, that's your own problem. I don't want it. I will fight you. Or to say, okay, how do we get it done? But the first thing is to make sure that we have that agenda to be our own demand. Because if we don't have it, it is his party's agenda, no matter how good or highfalutin it is, that will be uppermost in his mind or in anybody's mind. So, I mean, we know you can't just go to the north, for example, and say, okay, everybody, most Yoruba Muslims drop their quote-unquote Arabic names and use Yoruba names for quite a lot of them. And you can't go to the north and say, drop your Islamic names and start bearing your local name. I mean, you can do that, but that's what I'm saying. So unlike what happened during the Obasanjo years, when Obasanjo did this one, Afenifere simply collapsed and say, oh yeah, our man is there. He will do this, he will do that, he will do this, he will do that. That is a big lesson for us to learn from. That yes, our man may be there, but we have to have our own platform that he will have to abide with. It's not a question of writing a memorandum of understanding. This is a political contest.
Yeah.
a political context within a political context. So you have Nigeria, you have Yoruba land, and the Yoruba are saying this is what we want, regardless of who is the president. So the president can either say, oh yeah, let's work on it, or no, I'm going to fight you. Then we can fight each other if necessary, or if not necessary, we can negotiate things out. And that's what we are saying. And that is what has been lacking so far in this journey about self-determination and all that. And that is why all these, people, when you give them ultimatum, and by this time we declare force majeure, there will be no election. And these people are just going, they just look at you as if you don't know what you are talking about. So if you tell Tinubu now there will be no election in 2023, as a politician, he will say, I have to carry everybody along. He will talk to you, but they will carry out their election. You know that. But if you tell him, if you are able to tell him, okay, this is where the Yoruba stand, then he will be forced to say, I'm with you or I'm not with you.
No, no, yeah.
But so the question is, how do we get Yoruba people to that point? And that's why we are talking about the Yoruba referendum, which is harmless, I mean, in quotes, to everybody, and which can be replicated by everyone. That we know there's a problem. That's why I used the example of religion the other time. There's a problem with Nigeria. We Yoruba don't fight over religion. We want to organize ourselves in such a way that we will become comfortable in relationships with other people. So if we have autonomy and we control ourselves, all these problems will not be there. If some people say no, unless they fight themselves to death over religion, that's how they want to do it. Fine, let them say so. Now, if you can be compatible, if we are not compatible, everybody go their own way. So that's what we are saying. And that is what should be our response to a possible Tinubu presidency. That yes, Omowani Eje say, yeah, yeah, no problem. But we are not putting all our eggs in his basket.
In the basket.
Yeah, because we have experienced it before, and we know. And more importantly, and this the late Dr. Beko Ransom Kuti used to say something about Babangida at that time when Babangida was doing his own thing. And Beko will say, what if he drops dead tomorrow? So all these things we are saying, we are not saying anyone is going to drop dead or anybody, because we don't know who old and young and all the rest of it. This thing should not be dependent on what an individual wants.
Yes.
It should
Yes.
not be dependent on what an individual wants. It should be dependent on what is collectively agreed by all of us, so that whatever happens to any individual, wherever, that mandate still remains. And that is why we are saying, let us give the Yoruba referendum that legitimacy, so that it doesn't matter who is governor, it doesn't matter who is president, it doesn't matter who is anybody. We have already validated it. And the only thing is how to manifest the provisions that are contained in it. So
Right.
that's the thing. So I mean, we welcome him, and Yoruba ló kàn. So
Uh,
yeah,
right. Thank you very much, Alagba Femi Odedeyi, and those people that have joined us or that will be watching this later. What we are dealing with is actually looking into the some of the inaccurate information that are it's become like a slogan,
yeah,
and we were looking at the adverse effects of such slogans, which cannot deliver what the group or the individuals are putting them out. I mean, things that cannot be delivered. We are looking at the impact on the Yoruba people themselves. And that's why the title of today is Yoruba Nation Now Killing the Spirit of the People. People that have believed that, yes, we are no longer in Nigeria, on so days, and they woke up the following day, they still find out that they still have to use Nigeria currency, they still have to carry Nigeria passport and driver's license. They can still be arrested by Nigerian security agencies. And when they have problem that requires legal procedure, they still have to go to a Nigerian court. So to an extent, some people have spoken out that what's happening. It seems that this thing is not working. It hasn't worked. And we just look at that if the people championing that line of thoughts have been able to think about the workability of their roots, maybe they will have had time to sit down and think over it again. Of course, we also today look at that of no election in Yoruba land, and specifically references were made to Ekiti and Ondo state elections. That election took place over the weekend. That was yesterday, and the winner has been declared. Our position on that is that if they say there's no election, and a whole lot of people have put their trust in that narrative that there's not going to be an election, and once there's no election, that means Yoruba nation cannot rise. Now, there was election yesterday, and we begin to look at the impact of those people that totally relied on that narrative that there will be no election. So, and what happens with it is that, let's say you have, like, just for an example, 1,000 people we started to support the Yoruba liberation. And when the first major didn't happen, let's say about 200 were cut off, they just look at, no, these people are not serious. So we are left with 800. Now, the Ekiti one that happened yesterday, even Yoruba people voted. I mean, it was Ekiti. So even if there are other people from other ethnic tribes in Ekiti, I want to believe that 80% of the voters will be Yoruba people. So the Yoruba people voted there yesterday. Why it may have cut off some people who believe that it was not going to take place, and they didn't take any step for their voting documentations and go, believing that no, it's not going to happen. So those people have been cut off. And secondly, some people that believe it wasn't going to happen and it happened, maybe another 100 or 150 have been cut off from the remaining 800 that we have. And these are what we're looking at, that when groups and organizations are putting out information there, we need to give people the accurate information. Because if we turn out information that are not accurate, and we get there and it didn't happen, then the impact is not only on a particular group, it's on all Yoruba agitation groups. And that's what we are presenting, because if things are happening this way and supporters are being cut down, then at a point, the remaining number will no longer be relevant. We're still on the program, but we'll have a short break. Now, I'm still with Alagba Femi Odedeyi. We'll be actually, when we come back, we'll be listening to an audio that has been circulating on Yoruba liberation. It's one of the groups that have been putting that thing out, and it's an urgent matter. But then, when we come back, we'll look at how urgent that urgency is. So please do stay on with us, because we will be right back.
Thank you.
Ẹ̀yin àgbààgbà ìlú, kí ló dé o? Tẹ́bí ń ṣòro bí èwe, kí ló dé? Ẹ̀yin ṣe èèyàn bí ọkà, èyí ti ṣe. Àgbà ìlú aṣòro bí èwe. ṣe o. Ẹ̀yin àgbààgbà ìlú kí ló dé o. Tẹ́bí ń ṣòro bí èwe kí ló dé. Ẹ ń ṣe èèyàn bí ọkà èyí ti ṣe. Àgbà ìlú máa ṣòro bí èwe. Ta ni yóò padà táyé ṣe o. Ẹ̀yin àgbààgbà ìlú kí ló dé o. Tẹ́bí ń ṣòro bí èwe kí ló dé. Ẹ ń ṣe èèyàn bí ọkà èyí ti ṣe. Àgbà ìlú máa ṣòro bí èwe.
Right, thank you for staying on with us. We are just going on the last segment now. I still have Alagba Femi Odedeyi from Yoruba Referendum Committee. And remember, the topic of today's chat with Alagba Femi Odedeyi is Yoruba Nation now killing the spirit of the people. The impact of inaccurate information coming from Yoruba liberation groups. You are most welcome back to the program, Alagba Femi Odedeyi.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Now, like I said before we had that shorter break, we had this is actually short audio, about 3 of them. They came and they were saying it's very urgent. You need to be sharing it right now, for all Yoruba people. However, well, I'll leave you to assess, for you to assess the information there for us. And I want to state again to our people that when we bring things up here on this program or other places where you see us, is for the purpose of those who are involved in this to sit back and look at the information. Because if they bring out the information that is incorrect, that is inaccurate, and people run with it, and at the end of the day, people wasted their resources, they wasted their sweat, they wasted their time, and at the end of the day, they found out that the information is not right, that it doesn't even, nothing like that even exists. These are things that will kill the spirit of the people. And at the point where we are now, if we talk about Yoruba liberation and things we are going through, for some couple of years now, the way people have been killed in our forest, our women's raped, and the farms have been destroyed and co. Whatever we should be doing now should be what will bring more people up to support the cause. Because there is, when it comes to politics, when it comes to agitations like this, numbers matters. So I'll play that audio and then I will allow you to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
Gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá gbogbo àjìjàgbara àpò ẹ̀tọ́ ìlú wa kó ìjàgbara ìlú wa. Olùdúwà ń pè wá lẹ́yìn àwọn baba ńlá wọn wá pè wá lẹ́yìn o àní ṣíṣe o. Ẹjọ́ wọn ní àwọn United Nations wọ́n ní wọ́n ń bọ̀ ní Nàìjíríà pé wọ́n ti fẹ́ dá sí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí nísìnyí. Wọ́n ní ṣùgbọ́n àwọn olóṣèlú wa àwọn bàbá Ọbásanjọ́ àwọn Tinubu wọ́n ní wọ́n sọ pé instruction làwọn fẹ́ pé wọ́n fẹ́ referendum pé kán restructure. Àwọn ará náà ti tẹ̀ ti sọ pé tán bá restructure gan ní pé wọ́n ní gbé president sílẹ̀ pé ọ̀dọ̀ wọn ló máa bá wà. So láti UK ni wọ́n ti pè mí fún pé ká ètò ìgbéra wa jọ bí wọ́n bá ṣe ń tẹ̀sí voice yìí ẹ jẹ́ kó máa lọ bẹ́ẹ̀. Wọ́n ní ẹ máa pariwo ẹ̀yin tẹ́ bá lè lọ sórí social media, sórí Facebook, sórí Instagram, orí YouTube, Wọ́n ní kẹ́ máa sọ pé we don't want restructuring o. It is Yoruba nation we want, Yoruba nation we want. We don't want restructuring. It is referendum we want. Wọ́n ní kẹ́ tètè ṣe é fún kẹ́ máa gbé síbẹ̀ so that táwọn ilé ẹ̀dí bá dé wọ́n sì wá ti lọ ẹjọ́. Bó ṣe ń fẹ́ ìpọ́ ìdí èmi náà máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ tọ̀dọ̀ mi. Ẹjọ́ ẹ bá wa ṣe àìkú máa lọ. Ẹ ṣe àkíní yìí kó máa lọ. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ̀bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní pariwo. It is Yoruba nation we want. Yoruba nation la fẹ́ o. We don't want to stop joining. Referendum la fẹ́ o. Yoruba nation la fẹ́ o. We are tired of Nigeria. Ẹ já máa lọ. Ajá fún yín o.
Second one.
God bless you, my brother. In fact, when you first answer, that's why I say many that should call me. The source of the information is correct. America has contacted Obasanjo and Adebanjo. Option méjì jẹ́ kan fún wọn pé kán lọ àwọn èèyàn tán bá lè ti gbà pọ́n tí wọ́n ṣe referendum and Buhari àti gbogbo wọn fẹ́ ká ṣe referendum. So wọ́n ti lọ ń bẹ̀ wọ́n àwọn kan ti ń fọ́ another nurse kan ti ń fọ́ àwọn machine náà máa ṣàwò wọ́n ti develop good fit ní sí ìgbà tó ti lè pèsè láì sí pé a lè ṣe àgbà kí náà kò tí wọn ẹgbẹ́ tó ń bẹ̀ wá pé àwọn ò fẹ́ referendum àwọn fẹ́ restructuring we are not going for restructuring so the source of the information is correct.
And the last one.
Gbogbo ẹ̀yọ́ ọmọ Yorùbá jẹ́ nǹkan mẹ́sẹ̀jì. Ẹ má sùn o. Information tí mo fún yín information tó ṣe pàtàkì ní lórí àfẹ́sì gbogbo akéde ọ̀dà mi ṣe lórí struggle fún òmìnira orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá. Bí mo ṣe bá yín sọ̀rọ̀ nísìnyí, àwọn international community ti pe bàbá Ọbásanjọ́ àti bàbá Adébánjọ Ọ̀gbẹ́nifẹ́mi pé kọ́ wá inú hàn fáwọn nípa àkọ́ tí Yorùbá fẹ́. Ẹ wo Ọbásanjọ́ àti bàbá Adébánjọ ti náà fáwọn lọ́wọ́ báyìí discuss nípa restructuring. Ẹni ọ̀gbẹ́ restructuring kan ní gbogbo Yorùbá fẹ́ ìkọ́ta fẹ́ níbi afẹ́ òmìnira orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá tó bẹ̀rẹ̀ náà. Mo fẹ́ pé ẹṣẹ́ ń ka ẹṣẹ́ ń gbọ́ voice message extend ẹ̀ sí gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá. Kí gbogbo wọn ṣe voice wọ́n gbé sórí gbogbo social media platform àti WhatsApp gbogbo wọn wípé Yorùbá ò fẹ́ restructuring. Ọbásanjọ́ àti Adébánjọ ò lè sọ̀rọ̀ fún wa. What we are demanding for, but I'm telling you, after orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá, and I will want this to a referendum. And we máa kò ní láti máa ń sọ̀rọ̀. Mo ń pe gbogbo wọn Yorùbá àti gbogbo àgbáyé, gbogbo ọ̀dọ́, gbogbo obìnrin àti gbogbo àwọn ọkùnrin ilẹ̀ Yorùbá wípé Ọbásanjọ́ àti bàbá Adébánjọ lọ́wọ́ báyìí ṣe ń bá yín sọ̀rọ̀ yìí. Wọ́n ti bá wọn ṣe ìpàdé àwọn ìbò ti bá wọn ṣe ìpàdé lókè òkun. Wọ́n lè ti sọ pé ìbùkún ìṣọ̀jọ́ ìlú Yorùbá fẹ́. Ẹ̀dùn tó lọ fún àwọn ẹ̀dùn bá kó lẹ́sẹ̀ yìí kó ṣe voice. Ó sọ kó ṣe voice tó sàkólé káàkiri gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá lórí WhatsApp, lórí Instagram, lórí Twitter àti Facebook, lórí gbogbo platform tó wà lórí WhatsApp àti lórí àwọn ọ̀dẹ́ bá ní ó máa tẹ̀lé tó lọ àwọn MTN tó àrẹ ọ̀dẹ̀. Ó fẹ́ ìgbọ́n tí Yorùbá fẹ́ is self-determination. Is something Yorùbá take to the United Nations supervise referendum tó wọ́n náà fẹ́. Ọbásanjọ́ àti Adébánjọ especially of the Nigerian state. Ìjọba kò jẹ́ Yorùbá kan to be free. Ìyàwó sọ pé homeland. Ẹ̀yìn ọ̀dọ́ orí ọlọ́run. Ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ gbọ́ mẹ́sẹ̀jì ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ voice. Ẹ̀yin tẹ̀wà lórí gbogbo platform wa lórí WhatsApp. Ẹ̀yin tẹ̀wà tẹ́kẹ́ bí kí wọ́n fẹ́ sọ lórí WhatsApp àti ẹ̀yin tẹ̀wà lórí Facebook wa ìdílọ́run wa ẹ̀yin tó sórí ọlọ́run. Kí láì jẹ́ kí gbogbo akéṣu láti ṣe àti gbogbo sacrifice àti pé ìkúta lásán. Àwọn international community lọ́wọ́ báyìí wọ́n kọ́ Ọbásanjọ́ àti ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ méjì tó ṣe gbogbo lọ́wọ́ láti ẹjọ́ àwọn olùbàdàn àwọn aláìsíkẹ́ ẹ̀ ṣe voice kẹsọ fáwọn ẹ káàkiri gbogbo bí Ọbásanjọ́ àtàwọn ẹni máa lọ wọ represent Yorùbá wọn lè represent kò tí Yorùbá fẹ́ because Yorùbá ti máa fún self-determination for Yorùbá as a sovereign state to win the United Nations supervise referendum. Tó bá gbọ́ tá a bá ṣe lé ta circulate Ọbásanjọ́ àtàwọn ẹni máa lọ àtàwọn tó lọ́ọ́ ṣe fi hàn wípé báwo làwọn pèpè ṣe gbọ́ ó fẹ́ tàkà àpàtó referendum orílẹ̀-èdè òmìnira ìbálòpẹ́ o.
Okay, that's the third one. Just for me to explain, since this part is English program, we do have Yoruba program for Yoruba Referendum Committee on Thursdays on Facebook, and that is Yoruba Referendum Committee Facebook page. every Thursday at 7. So now what I've played out here is in Yoruba. And what I mean, you've seen about three different people spoke here, including the people that are in UK. In fact, there is a claim that the information came from the UK here. And that information is that the United Nations and international officials are already, the people said some are preparing to go into Nigeria. The United Nations is already involved. They already speaking with Tinubu, Baba Adebanjo. Adebanjo is the leader of Afenifere and also Obasanjo. That they're speaking with those people, and those people are saying that no, it's restructuring we want, and that people should start circulating this that no, we don't want restructuring, we want Yoruba nation completely out of Nigeria. That's just to explain it in short. And over to you, Alagba Femi Odedeyi. We'll look at how does United Nations operate in this case, and this claim that they're already discussing Nigeria and how those international community wants to come to Nigeria. So that would be one part. How do they operate? Then the second part would be this UN backed or UN conducted referendum. So if you take the first questions, which is about the process, international community, their involvement, and probably maybe previous or ongoing involvement with people like OBJ that have been in government before, people like that. So let's first deal with that part.
Yeah, the one, it is false to claim that the United Nations is coming to Nigeria to come and intervene in what is going on. Why it is false is this. The United Nations is already involved in the anti-terrorism war that Nigeria is involved in the Sahel. Nigeria is part of the United Nations military force that is working there. United Nations is already involved in the case of or questions of internally displaced persons in Nigeria. That is those who are displaced by terrorist attacks and Boko Haram and all the rest of it in the ID camps in Nigeria. The United Nations has a regional office in Nigeria. I mean, a regular regional office in Nigeria. So with all this, the United Nations is aware of what is happening in Nigeria. That is one. Two, before United Nations can even intervene in any country, there must be a request to the United Nations, if there's enough crisis in that country, a request to the United Nations, which must be approved by the Security Council. The Security Council is essentially dominated by only one country, actually, although they have 5 members as permanent members. But any one of them can veto the remaining 4. So without the Security Council approving such a thing, it won't happen. And it cannot happen because the crisis is not even does not even meet United Nations parameters. That is number 2. Number 3, there is a Nigerian representative at the UN itself, at the UN General Assembly, such that even if somebody brings an appeal to the United Nations to come and intervene, that representative will defend whatever in Nigeria before any decision is reached. So that is part of the false narratives that they are. I don't know how they came about it, but it is false that to expect United Nations is coming to Nigeria to come and do this and this. That's number 1. That's part of it. The next part is Obasanjo and Obasanjo in particular. In fact, there was a time he ran for the Secretary Generalship of the UN. It was Professor Kongi, Wale Soyinka, and Beko Ransom Kuti that mounted the pressure against him to contest, to become the Secretary General. And since he had been the head of state, military and civilian, he had been in international agencies and all the rest of it. If we recall, he was in somewhere in Europe when he was coming to Nigeria under Abacha, that some European agency warned him not to come to Nigeria, that he's going to be arrested. And then, he boasted by saying nobody is big enough to arrest him in Nigeria. And he came, Abacha arrested him, and he went to jail. That's it. So he is already an international figure, if you can put it that way. So to now start saying they have reached an agreement with the UN, they went to it's just ignorance, political ignorance, to be very charitable. Because these are people that are already involved in international stuff. So they don't need a special thing for them to go, and if they want to reach any agreement with them, they will have reached it with them as far as Nigeria is concerned, even before now. As to Chief Adebanjo, Baba Adebanjo, and Tinubu and all the rest, these were people that were active in the pro-anti-military group, and we know, very close to the US government at that time. That was why Eleke Crescent in Lagos was renamed Walter Carrington Crescent, because Walter Carrington was the American ambassador at that time, and he was closely aligned with these people during the anti-military movement. And when they came to power, that's when they renamed, that's the street where the American embassy, American consulate or embassy was in Victoria Island. Then they renamed it Walter Carrington Crescent. So these are people that have been having international contacts with the different governments over time. So to now say that United Nations wants to come for self-determination, but these people are talking about restructuring, it's just political ignorance. If one wants to be honest, it is political mischief. They are just carrying out political mischief, because whether the guy that says that the information is true or not, is just being being funny. Because if you have been you have been having a relationship with the international agencies for a long period of time, now you now see they have a special relationship. Now it doesn't make any sense. So that's why we are saying they pass on false information, they raise people's hope in a false manner, because everything that they said is going to happen cannot happen. It will not happen. Now, on question of UN conducting a referendum or not, in many countries, we know. That's why I said they think that Yoruba land is a special case that has no relationship with the rest of what is happening in the rest of the world. In each of the countries that the UN has intervened, one, there is so much crisis that because of the involvement of the different world powers in those crises, they will now go to the United Nations to find a resolution. Then they will now instruct the United Nations to send a team, military or civilian, to go and see how they can ameliorate the crisis. That's what happened in the Central African Republic, recently. That's what is happening in the Sahel. That's what happened even in the Congo. Even before now, before self-determination became thing, we know now Obasanjo has a record of being a member of the UN peacekeeping force in the Congo in the 60s. He was there in the Congo. They went to, to resolve and in modern times, even before in South Sudan, after the different wars and all the rest, to now get the United Nations to even carry out the referendum in South Sudan was simply because, one, there was no legitimate government in South Sudan. Two, of course, America and China were playing their own political games in South Sudan, trying to offend each other. Then they both went to the United Nations to resolve the matter at the Security Council, and it led to Sudan. In East Timor, it was after Indonesia had already virtually destroyed East Timor, Timor-Leste, that they call it now, and all that. So there are many examples like that, we can even look at our own little corner where we had ECOMOG, just to give an idea of how international relations play out. When Liberia was undergoing its own wars and all the Liberia and Sierra Leone, I think, doing all the kinds of stuff they were doing in that place. Now, to ECOWAS as a body, because the thing is happening in Africa, now in West Africa, now took it upon itself, ECOWAS, and to say, okay, how do we resolve this thing? Then they got some countries together, Nigeria being the leading and has the resources, put up a military force to go and resolve the issue there. That's how ECOMOG came into being, out of that crisis. So, and of course, ECOWAS is also part of the international global thing. So without the crisis that is either engineered or supported by the global power plays, where they know that they can't fight each other with the proxies on ground, then they will go to the United Nations, and then they will now instruct it is the world powers that will now instruct the United Nations to do this, do this, do this. United Nations General Assembly, by its own laws, if you go to the UN website, the United Nations General Assembly cannot do anything by itself. It cannot debate anything to say we are going to do something. It has to come from the Security Council. And why did they do that? Because they know why they set up the body in the first instance. They don't want to fight each other in any world war. So they created it, although it's breaking down now. So it is when the power plays among the various international bodies break down, then they will go to the United Nations, and then ask the United Nations to send a military force or this and this and this and this and that to go and intervene in that environment so that they can maintain the balance. Without that conflict, United Nations is not sending anything anywhere. And in this particular case, like I said, there's no information that the self-determination movements want to give to the UN that the UN doesn't have already. So if you now object to Obasanjo and Adebanjo's restructuring by your own self-determination or sovereignty or Yoruba nation now, in fact, the first question they will ask you, they are saying, from what we heard, they are saying Obasanjo and Adebanjo do not represent Yoruba people, right? Are they the ones representing Yoruba people? We back to Akeredolu. Akeredolu said, where did you really check on? Who made these people, representatives of Yoruba people? When they were doing their party primaries, Akeredolu said the Yoruba governors, our local, is coming to Southwest because they are speaking on behalf of Yoruba people. So, and that's what he said. I quoted him verbatim. Akeredolu spoke on behalf of Yoruba people. You guys are saying Adebanjo and Obasanjo don't speak on behalf of Yoruba people. You are the ones speaking. So what is the Yoruba position on all these matters? That is why, and then they now want to mess everything up by talking about referendum. Number one, they have never even admitted the need for any referendum, not to talk of any United Nations referendum. But now that things are falling apart, they now want to mix it up, that they want a referendum. Okay, so you want a referendum. The issue is this. You are not the only ones on the question of referendum. You are not the only ones that want a referendum. So you can't be the only one to dictate what should be on the referendum question. The referendum can be, do you want restructuring or you want to opt? If you vote you want to opt out, go. But you still have to find out how the whole thing, so you can't dictate to the rest of us what it is. That is number one. Number two, the United Nations cannot, like I said earlier, cannot conduct any referendum outside the purview of the Security Council. And we read what happened when, what's his name? The US ambassador visited the vice president this past week.
Yes.
And one of the things she said was that, they want to keep Nigeria because Nigeria can provide a democratic supply of gas. I don't know what that means,
Yes.
but that Nigeria. So by just inference, they want to keep Nigeria as a democratic state.
Yes.
So how can you now? I mean, that's what democratic supply of gas means, because supply of gas from a democratic country. I think that is.
Yes. Yes.
So how can the ambassador say that? Then you now start saying they reach an agreement. So the whole thing about the referendum, they want to, like I said, I won't want to say at this point that they are deliberately trying to befuddle issues. They have no, in terms of the Yoruba call such people, they have nothing to offer, but they want to destroy those who have something to offer. They want to confuse issues. That's what they are doing. Because one, when we say referendum, it is very clear. And it is written down. It is on the internet. We say we want the Yoruba government, the governments, in the Yoruba, to be under one central government, and is by the Yoruba Houses of Assembly, through the Yoruba Houses of Assembly. It's very clear. But these people are now saying they want referendum to come and be conducted by the United Nations. Adebanjo doesn't want referendum, they want referendum and all that. But when you ask them again, that's what everything I've said about the United Nations is not my personal opinion. Anyone can go and check. It is there you can check as many sources as you want. There is nowhere the United Nations will just say, because you have signed some kind of thing, we are going. It's not done. It is even written in the United Nations Charter. The United Nations cannot do it. If anything is going to be done, it's going to be from the Security Council. And one of the strongest member of the Security Council has already said that they want a gas supply from a democratic gas supply. And in any case, the gas supply is essentially from the Niger Delta. So even if they want to partition the country, they will rather face where they can get their gas from and not, So there is a whole lot of misinformation, mischief, and deliberate distortion. I'm sorry to use such strong language, but that is what it amounts to, because nothing that they said has any value, any political value. So it's just like like the fable, the tale about the boy that will cry, fire, 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 and then you run out, and then you say, where's the fire? And then, So, but when they are doing all these things, is either because they don't know what to do, or they want to be part of those, we are also doing something, but they are damaging the struggle itself. Fortunately, there are people that are rising up against them. Look, what you are saying, this is one of the major faults of social media. Anybody can pick up a phone and do a recording and start yelling. That is what they are doing. They are just yelling. because everything they said cannot stand scrutiny. Cannot. So even if Obasanjo and Adibanjo, if they want restructuring, so what? What is their problem with that? Maybe all you need to do is to state your case. And Baba Adebanjo has never hidden his belief in restructuring. He says it openly. So why should he now go behind anybody's back to reach any agreement? In fact, what will surprise us is if he says something different from restructuring. Because he's been saying it, he says it everywhere. Everything is about restructuring, restructuring. So he doesn't need to go and hold a secret meeting with America before saying that's what he wants. We all know it. Obasanjo himself, in fact, let me just say, he's also talking about restructuring. So what is their problem? So if you have a solid case and a verifiable case, make it to your people. Not this, jewelry kind of thing. Hey, urgent. So, and like I said, let's even assume they are speaking the truth. Okay, fine. Obasanjo and Adibanjo wants restructuring. You don't want restructuring. Akeredolu said he's speaking on behalf of Yoruba people. So, if there's going to be anything, Yoruba people must decide where they want to go. And the only way they can make that decision is to hold that referendum within themselves, by themselves. This is not a United Nations issue. It's not even an Abuja issue. It's a Yoruba issue. This is where we want to go. Unless they are afraid that their campaign will not they will, that's why they will now start up. So if we have not been able to organize a referendum among ourselves, we are now running to United Nations to say, yeah, come and help us. And then we say, the charity begins at home, and all that. So we are violating even our own basic norms by making that move. That we are not even allow our basic cultural norms to even guide our processes. And then they will say, we'll do at this, we'll do at that, we'll do at this, we'll do at that. So it's very simple and very clear. They are just mischief makers. That's what all the three of them, they are mischief makers. Yes.
Thank you very much. Just to add to what you said, because in the course of the week, we came across a document which assessed the operation of the United Nations, especially in terms of self-determination. And I'll read that out. It says, this shows that in this context, the United Nations can show itself to be a friend to self-determination, but only if expedient to do so, i.e., it helps to resolve a conflict and does not go against the interests of major powers, which shows clearly that the only way that the United Nations we align with a nation seeking self-determination if one, there's a conflict. Because once there's a conflict, we know that the major parts of the world, they have interest all over Africa, especially.
Yes.
Till tomorrow, Britain has interest in Nigeria. Same with United States.
Democratic
China as well, that has been getting into Africa of late. And of course, like we said, even Russia, it's believed that Russia provided the pilots and planes during the Nigerian Civil War, while France was fighting from the other side, from the Biafra side. So we have all these major powers that have interest. So when there's a conflict in a place, like we have in Sudan, there were areas where they had interest that they couldn't get into because of the conflict. So they have to step in to stop the conflict. Or of course, we know the Sudanese, they've killed each other, as many that they can kill. Then United Nations now comes in, and then they went back to conducting a referendum. So that's like resolving the conflict. And it's also mentioned here, the last part that I read, that only if that self-determination will not go against the interest of major powers. So, in terms of self-determination, while you are claiming self-determination and you want United Nations to get involved, the United Nations is saying our interest comes first.
Mhm.
The major powers in United Nations that no, you can't get your
Did that.
self-determination, which will go against our self-interest. So our self-interest comes first. If your self-determination will affect our self-interest, then no way. So that means even if you get the self-determination,
Yes.
you are going to serve the interests of those. But then taking it further, you've mentioned one of the things that was said by the United States staff in Nigeria, but also there was something else that she also said when she mentioned that we have interest in Nigeria because it determines Africa's development.
Yes.
So if anything is going to happen in Nigeria, US is saying that yeah, Nigeria is like role model for the rest of Africa. So before they will do anything that will separate Nigeria, they look at the implication of that in the context of the rest of Africa. But also, we've mentioned it over this program that the United States is building its largest embassy in Lagos.
Mhm.
That must be, of course, a high interest they have in Nigeria. I'm not too sure whether that embassy was being put there because of Yoruba nation. I think it's really more about Nigeria and how they can get other things, including natural gas. We might remember also that Dangote refinery is almost around the same axis.
Yes.
And from reports we've had in the past, there was a department under the US government that actually gave, whether it was a loan or a gift, but they gave money to Dangote. They claim it was to train staffs, but of course, that's part of the interest
Mhm.
that we're talking about. So if we put that together, the US will most likely not do anything that will jeopardize its interest in Nigeria and of course in Africa. So let's move to one other question. All the Yoruba liberation groups, there's something that is common to 80% of them, and that's me being a bit soft because I will put it at something about 90 or 95.
99.5.
There's this demonization of uh, the political representatives, almost
Yeah.
except few. When they talk about the politicians, despite the fact that we know that this issue is a political issue which has to be resolved, but we find out that almost all these groups, one way or the other, they don't even want to have anything to do with the politicians. They demonize them. They would rather leave the country and go somewhere to go and ask an international body to come and resolve the issue than engaging with their own political representatives. Why is this a norm? I mean, because it is not happening to one, not just to two, but it seems to spread across. Why is this a norm?
Well, earlier on in the beginning of this program, I said there's a lack of theoretical understanding which pushes them to do a lot of things. So when you lack that critical element, a lack of understanding, the next thing is to act in a way that doesn't appear logical. I'm trying to weigh my words. So they ran away from the politicians, and once they run away from the politicians, the next thing is to run away from Nigeria. In other words, when I say something about denying reality the other time, when they say they don't, one they do relate with the politicians. It's just that it's not something we should be. I mean, there are a lot of politicians. Some of them want them to sponsor. Some of them want the politicians to sponsor them into offices.
Okay.
Some of them were actually sponsored. Some feel some and all that. So they do that. So, but let's leave that aside so that they won't say one is, talking bad about them. Let's leave that aside. So the point is this, that when there's a lack of sufficient theoretical understanding, the next thing is to have a knee-jerk reaction to deny reality. Okay, whether we like it or not, these politicians are in power. But you are saying they are denying it, saying they are not in power, which flies in the face of reality. So because they deny that reality, they cannot engage with it, they cannot interact with it. The only thing left for them, because of that denial, to run away from it. So they deny that it exists, therefore they don't need to engage with it, therefore they will say we are not part of it. So it leads them to the Nigerian case again, that they now come to Nigeria and say Nigeria does not exist. And because it doesn't exist, we run away from it. And to run away from it, we are out of Nigeria. So everything is like building their castles in the air because they deny that reality. And why did they deny that reality? Because they lack the sufficient theoretical understanding to engage it. So you have a self-determination is essentially a political issue. It's not even a legal technical issue. It's a political issue. You want to govern yourself. Government is a political issue. So, but you are saying there is no government in place, or the government that is in place is bad, or it's this, is that. So you are not going to do anything with it. You are out of it. That means you are you are just living in the air. There's no root. There's no root because the process of engaging them defines your root, the depth of your root, and it defines your political character. And we have said it several times. If you look at other countries that have been in self-determination and all that, whether they are killing themselves or they are not killing themselves, they are engaging that reality. One of the ways they engage in reality for those who are killing themselves, like in South Sudan and all the rest, is they know that, okay, here's our enemy. The only way we can get rid of the enemy is to fight it. And then they start fighting each other. But they did not say the enemy doesn't exist, which is what most of the Yoruba self-determination groups are doing, because they just give that impression to themselves, so that politicians are bad, they will just leave them. Then we go and get the United Nations to come and do something for us. As if even if the United Nations come to do anything, if the United Nations comes today, they are still going to be talking to some people. They will say who are the leaders on ground. So somebody will represent something. But because that's why I said it is it's a flight of fancy. All the talk about Yoruba self-determination and all that is for most of them, it's a flight of fancy, and it is very cheap and easy to do. To say I'm not part of it, I want to. We must get rid of it. We must do this, and then of course you ask them, how do you want? We have asked this question several times. Okay, you want Yoruba sovereignty. How do you go about it? Then they will keep mum. And don't worry, it will happen. That's not how things are done. So my advice to them would be for them to go back to the drawing board. Let them go back to the drawing board, and every time you see, again, the thing is this Yoruba nation now, or self-determination, is not a recent phenomenon. It had been going on even since the annulment and all that. Then you ask them, okay, what is your particular achievement in the last 30 years? Nothing. And these politicians that you are claiming are bad are entrenching themselves every time. And you are supposed to be their opponents. So what have you done, or what can you do? What is your route? Nothing. So when they want to conduct elections now, the politicians will go and mobilize their people. You, the self-determination that is supposed to represent the collective interests of Yoruba people, cannot mobilize people for your own agenda. And when they did it the first time, they said, oh yeah, let's go, we want Yoruba nation now. The first time they faced the fire of the central government, everything scattered. Why? Because they had already assumed it doesn't exist. And when it showed this existence, and then when the whole thing scattered, it is the same politicians that they are abusing that are now rallying around to provide support for them. So they need to re-examine themselves. Let's put it that way. They need to re-examine themselves. Yes, and to re-examine what is meant by self-determination. I mean, one would just be repeating one. Let them go and examine themselves, so Daddy. It's as simple as that. All these sudden emergency calls and all that, it's not going to solve any problem for them. There are those in the self-determination movement that know exactly what they are doing. They may be in the minority, but there are those that know exactly what they are doing. It's just that social media has given everybody the opportunity to be shouting anything. And they say not no news is good. Bad news spreads fast. So the more emergency you cry, yeah. There was a time one of them in one of the movement posted a video on what he called Fulani aggression in Abeokuta, Ogun State. What did he post? A herd of cows. Like when you look at the Western movies, where you see cows running and with cowboys and all that. That was what is posted. There's nowhere in Abeokuta that has such a land that you have thousands of cows running around. Yeah, they posted it and they were calculating it. So they have come, they have come, they have come. So these are the kind of things they engage in. All kinds of, I won't even call it propaganda because it doesn't even meet the standard. If you want to post something where cows are running riots, cattle, when cowboys are driving their cattle across ranches, it is not in an urban area like Abeokuta that it happens. I mean, they should put some thing into. So it's just you know, I mean, a lack of sufficient theoretical understanding, and it's not insulting them. Oh. They just need to
Yeah,
up
again.
their game, as it were. Otherwise, all the politicians they are insulting and abusing will just be winning over them over and over and over and over again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, and that is us rounding up. So coming around to Yoruba Referendum Committee
Yes.
uh, position on this, I'm going to get this flag up back again now.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay.
Yes.
So the what people have asked is that what's the progress on this?
Well, one, we thank you and we thank God, we thank everyone for those who are signing the petition. Yeah, let it go on and sign on. But we are also making direct and indirect efforts and contacts with groups and individuals in Yoruba land. And some of them we still publish our bulletins, which we circulate on the different media. But we also know that person to person contact is also important, at least to get a better understanding of what we are doing. So, and now that initially, before I think about a month or two ago, some were telling us, oh, nobody will listen to us now because of elections and everybody will be running around and this and that. So, okay, fine. So now that elections are, I mean, at least the primaries are over, the upcoming elections are coming. So some of those people we still gather, we do interact. Is a long road. It's not an urgent. I mean, it is urgent in terms of long term goal, but it's not an urgent matter. We are go 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 go. So because a lot of you have to. That's political engagement. Is not military. It's not about issuing military orders that yes, you must obey the order of your superior. No, it's a political engagement that requires understanding and interaction and all kinds of stuff. So we are also embarking on that. We are not we left the petition open for anyone who wants to continue to sign to go and sign, but we believe we have reached those that we ought to have reached with the number of those petitions. We have we have made our case known. The case had been made known. The question now is, okay, what is the next step that we are going to take? So, among the relevant people, individuals, no one can deny the necessity for what we have placed on the table. But of course, it's an ongoing engagement. So we are quite certain. And then, it's not just a question of our own engagement. We also look at the political situation in Nigeria and in Yoruba land as it evolves, which also informs our engagement with the political leadership. Because we know that they have their own issues among the general Nigerian political issues. And one way or the other, they will get, I mean, they get their fingers burnt also somewhere along the line. So there is no way they will not resort to their, let's say, home base. So we recognize that contradictions within Nigeria, and we also recognize the contradictions within Yoruba land itself. So, and then it is those contradictions will create atmosphere, will create the room for us to engage them to arrive at. The most important thing is we have the referendum bill. We have everything that is contained in there. So we can't even go outside of it. And we are not even using it to negotiate for any position or anything. It is a political demand that we want them, that we are engaging them with. So it's a product of a contradiction, and it will have to provide a resolution for itself. That's why I said the Yoruba, the self-determination, we are going, we are not going, we are doing this, we are not doing that, that we are confident in asking them to provide their own how, what is their pathway. So far, none of them has been able to do that outside the sloganeering. So we have no problems with them. The politicians and the elders in Yoruba land, we have been engaging with them, and we are trusting that it will become a positive engagement over a period of time. And any obstacles that stands in the way will be removed. We are not afraid of Babadi Banjo asking for restructuring. And we are not afraid of Obasanjo asking for restructuring. And we are not afraid of Akeredolu saying he is speaking on behalf of the Yoruba people. No, because all we are saying is, oh yeah, let's have one voice. It's as simple as that. Yeah, so anybody can come with any voice, but let it be formalized and be debated and arrived at in a formal, legitimate, and valid manner. That's what we are saying. So if at the end of the day, the referendum says Yoruba don't want to be in Nigeria, no problem. No. So
Rest of the people.
yeah, we have no problem with that. So that again, when I talk about understanding, theoretical understanding, you see all this dichotomy between self-determination, restructuring, sovereignty, is nonsense. There is nothing, there is no dichotomy in anything, because it is one and the same thing. It is just that in certain instances, there are certain phrases that come in handy. Restructuring is what will make it. If the North says they don't want what, like I said the other time, Yoruba people don't argue or fight over religion.
About religion, yes.
Yes. So if because of that, we now say, okay, the Nigerian state must become secular or whatever it is indirectly, because we don't believe in that kind of thing. We know how to solve our problems in our own way. If they don't agree, they don't agree. We don't, then they can go. But and we are not the only ones with such peculiar characteristics in Nigeria. So let each nationality come with their peculiarities, and that is what we base the state upon. And that's what we are talking. If it works, fine. We hope it works, and that it will be a beacon for the rest of Africa, because all the ethnic, ethno-national conflicts and all that, this is what is meant to be resolved by it, so that there will be order and stability. And if America wants to buy democratic gas, we can, we can sell democratic gas for them. So, and we will benefit also, because there's nothing stopping us from using the gas for our own cooking also.
Definitely.
Which will, by the way, if we do it right, will throw the price of gas in Europe higher. We'll make more money because we are using the bulk of it for ourselves.
That is it.
So the little that we have to export, they have to pay for it. Anyway, that's a
Mhm.
different question. So I'm just kidding now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. For our viewers, we're going to put the link to the petition right there again. You see it in the comment box. And if you have any question for Alagba Femi Odedeyi, please drop it in the comment box or send it to our inbox. We'll pick it up and then we'll deal with it. On Thursdays, we are on Yoruba Referendum Committee page. That is on Facebook. If you type it, Yoruba Referendum Committee will come up. Just go on that page at 7 p.m. every Thursday. And on that page is Yoruba. The Thursday one is Yoruba. Full Yoruba. While the one for Sunday 6 here every two weeks. The one here is every two weeks. It's English, but the one on Yoruba Referendum Committee's page is on Thursday every week at 7 p.m. Thank you so much for your time, sir. And that is us rounding up. We'll be getting other things ready for yourself for Thursday because we already having questions.
Ah,
So
okay.
and we'll prepare that one for Thursday.
Can you give me an idea of what it is? Or you want to keep it a secret?
We have to keep it until
Okay.
Thursday, but I think it's
All right.
just generally about
Okay.
the liberation movement and
Okay.
group alliance. If there's
Alliance.
anything like that, so
Okay.
we'll be tackling that on Thursday.
Thank
So,
you.
people, I mean, that's also Yoruba Nation now killing the spirit of the group. We have to ensure that we keep the people's spirit high. People should be able to whatever we bring it out there should be something that should lift up the spirit of the people. It should be something that makes them hopeful and looking forward to that time of liberation when I mean we can still sleep, we can sleep with our two eyes closed. But when we give information that are not accurate or correct, yeah, it could work for a season, but once people now begins to find out that it's not accurate, then it does greater damage than the benefit, and we should veer away from that. Also, time is running, like we used to say. It's teaching time, they say, saves nine. So you've got your representatives in your area with you, and that is the members of the state houses of assembly. You have them. They are not NAS member, that is the Senate and uh,
Software.
yeah, the other legislative arm in Abuja. Those are the people you only see once in a year or twice in a year. Those are not people we're targeting. The people we're targeting are the ones that live with us and they go to the state houses of assembly for their businesses. So they live among us. Those are the ones you need to speak with. That there's a bill they have already, which is the Yoruba Referendum Bill, that they should pass it into law. It's the right of the Yoruba people to have a say in how their life, how they want to live their life. This is not about one leader deciding for. I mean, we've also seen what we have now. We've had leaders, one saying it's Yoruba National, one is saying it's restructuring, one is saying it's presidency. So, but this one is a system whereby each Yoruba person will be able to cast a vote on whether you want Yoruba together or not.
Yeah.
And those ones have their constitutional implication once that is done. But the first step, which is not related to any political party, it's not related to any religion, it's not related to any class in the society, is simply telling your members of the State House of Assembly to pass the Yoruba Referendum Bill into law. So do enjoy the rest of the weekend, which is just a couple of hours, and do have a wonderful working week starting from tomorrow. Alagba Femi Odedeyi, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
a ní yóò padà táyé ṣe o. ẹ̀yin àgbààgbà ìlú kí ló dé o. tẹ́bí ń ṣòro bí èwe kí ló dé. ẹ̀yin ṣe èèyàn bí ọkà èyí ti ṣe. àgbà ìlú máa ṣòro bí èwe. ta ni yóò padà táyé ṣe o. ẹ̀yin àgbààgbà ìlú kí ló dé o. tẹ́bí ń ṣòro bí èwe kí ló dé. ẹ̀yin ṣe èèyàn bí ọkà èyí ti ṣe. àgbà ìlú máa ṣòro bí èwe. ta ni yóò padà táyé ṣe o. ẹ̀yin àgbààgbà ìlú kí ló dé o. tẹ́bí ń ṣòro bí èwe kí ló dé. ẹ̀ ń ṣe èèyàn bí ọkà èyí ti ṣe àgbà ìlú aṣọ yéwé.